Trump positioned himself in the campaign as the candidate against military intervention. He even criticized NATO, saying that it was a drain on taxpayer dollars.
Said, oh, he's violating NATO. And you know, the biggest problem I have with NATO, I really, if the United States was in trouble and we called them, do you think they're going to come and protect us?
But as president, Trump has created the largest military budget in U.S. history. That's $1 trillion. He sent weapons to Israel and he's left NATO completely untouched. And the areas of the country that Trump promised would be revitalized haven't seen a thing. And no place better embodies that contradiction than where we are right now, Dayton, Ohio. NATO chose this city to host the Spring Parliamentary Assembly, but the contradictions couldn't be clearer. The streets of Dayton, Ohio are littered with abandoned homes, even burned out homes. Programs across the board for working class families are being cut. The city embodies the Rust Belt, being one of the epicenters of the opioid epidemic in the country.
Dayton is abandoned. I mean, it feels like a ghost town. When I think back to growing up here, I mean, it's very heart-wrenching to think about friends and family who have died, from the opioid epidemic.
I'm a strong believer of you are what you see in your environment. If you send these kids to an area where all you see is drug usage, you got people fighting, you got a lot of these things down there, what do you expect them to do?
We're doing everything we can to make it a better city, to make the place we live a better place. But it's really kind of a hollowed out shell of what it used to be. All that's left is a lot of abandoned buildings. There's a lot of poverty. It's hard for people to find jobs. Where there is work, it probably doesn't pay as much as it might in another city. People are really struggling to get by here. So just to see all this money being spent on NATO and not our own communities is hard to see.
$9 million. That's what Dayton, Ohio has spent to host NATO war planners in the city. We spoke with locals to share their feelings on this massive spending and to learn more about how the militarization of the city impacted residents.
A lot of the people that are homeless in the downtown Dayton area were displaced because of the NATO village, right? And a lot of them are veterans.
As a veteran, it really makes me upset seeing how much money is going from Dayton just to put into security. They are using our tax dollars here to put up these ridiculous fences, to bring so many police to show force when we need money for infrastructure, we need money for healthcare, we need housing, we need union jobs to stay here in Dayton. Veterans, just like anyone else, we just aren't getting what we need in order to thrive here.
How can we spend millions of dollars protecting 300 people in our community when the kids don't even have school buses to get safely from school, back and forth to school? By kids coming downtown Dayton in order to get to school, sometimes when they get out of school, they have to wait 30 minutes to an hour just to get home.
Residents say the extra security for the NATO event led to the police harassing and tasing young people on the first night of the summit.
We had police down here shooting kids with baseball guns, slamming kids on their stomachs and backs and everything, all because it was a large group of them and there was arguments going on. And I get that you gotta separate the arguments and stuff. You gotta separate that to make sure that don't nothing major happen. But my thing is, why are you using forces like that on kids? It is illegal in Ohio to tase a child, and up to 2 kids was tased that day.
The Trump administration claims that there's no money for Medicaid and there's no money for programs that working class people actually depend on. But annually, the U.S. spends $3.5 billion on NATO. And that's part of the $1 trillion already spent for defense budgets. 1 in 6 people in Ohio have no idea where their next meal is going to come from. Thousands of children are facing cuts to their Head Start programs, and even more are facing potential cuts to the SNAP benefits program.
Growing up in the Dayton area, you hear a lot about how great Dayton used to be, how it was a big up-and-coming industrial city. But living here now, that's really not something you see.
After deindustrialization, when factories across the board shut down, cities in the Rust Belt experienced significant depopulation as millions of people left to find work. For Dayton, almost 50% of the population has left, leading to abandoned neighborhoods and extreme economic struggles. Over 30% of people in Dayton are currently living in poverty.
There's so many parts of Dayton, they call this the Rust Belt because it's been largely abandoned. The infrastructure is crumbling, the streets are crumbling, people are crumbling. People can barely survive here.
We just feel left behind by the government. They use you and then they cast you aside and then they treat you like you're crazy, especially when you're standing up against them.
Despite these horrible conditions, the people of the Rust Belt are fighting back.
While my students' classroom sizes are being increased and whole buildings are closed across the state due to budget cuts, while mold grows on my classroom ceilings and we can't afford to pay teachers in the rural American schools a living wage, this president wants to send your tax dollars to more war across the globe.
We came from all across Ohio. We came even all across the United States to say we reject a political and economic system that prioritizes militarism over the needs of the people and our planet. And that's why we're here to say, abolish NATO.
I'm here at the People's Assembly, where people across the country have gathered to counter NATO's Parliamentary Assembly.
Today we stand shoulder to shoulder, knocking at the door of one of the most prolific, one of the most deadly, one of the most undemocratic tools of U.S. empire. Its name is NATO.
Politicians in the corporate media say that our money goes to NATO to be an instrument of peace around the world. But since its foundings, NATO has been an instrument of war and U.S. imperialism. NATO was started as a so-called defensive military alliance, was supposedly formed to defend against the Soviet Union during the Cold War. But when the Cold War ended, NATO was not disbanded, it was actually expanded. Which brings us back to why Dayton was chosen to host this year's assembly. 30 years ago, the Dayton Agreement was signed here with NATO supervision, supposedly to end the wars in Bosnia. It's an odd thing to celebrate, because that agreement set the stage for years more of war in the Balkans and a whole new era of interventions worldwide with a supposed humanitarian fig leaf. This year's summit in Dayton raised the most fundamental questions. Who does NATO really serve? And what is collective security? Is it the real security of having food, shelter, and healthcare, or the spectacle of billion-dollar weapons contracts?
They had a fireworks display the other day that must have cost quite a bit of money. They explicitly said they didn't give people advance warning because they didn't want people to come, because they didn't want to spend money to staff security for a crowd to watch it. Meanwhile, they have hundreds, if not thousands, of police and soldiers here to keep the people out of our own city.